Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and today we have a special guest. Our guest today is Ho Barron, and he is a fantastic artist, local artist here from El Paso. And we're going to be talking a little bit about his thoughts on creativity, where he is from, and what he's doing today. So, Ho, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Miguel. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to ask you first, introduce yourself a little bit. Are you from El Paso originally?
More or less. My family moved here when I was 8 years old from Chicago.
Oh, wow.
But my grandparents had been here since the 30s. So my family goes way, way back. And my parents were in Chicago, and bad winters, 3 little boys with colds all winter. So let's move to El Paso.
Someplace warmer, right?
Yeah, yeah. But my father knew him because his parents had lived here a long time. And yeah, and he set up a shop on South El Paso Street with no money.
What kind of a shop?
He had shelving put in where he is right now, where Dave's Loans is, and he had shelving put up, and he had empty boxes on the shelves. He started out with nothing. And,
little by little, and just grew it.
Little by little. And this was in the 50s, and the military was much bigger here at the time, during the Korean War. And he sold military supplies and various things. And anyway, that business has been there. It's a famous shop.
It is very famous.
Elvis,
I've been there.
Yeah, the Elvis in front and the Pancho Villa's trigger finger. And my brother is still there, and his son are there.
Oh, very nice.
I worked there for 10 years, from 80 to 90. I came back here, and I had been wandering the world, and I came back here in 1980 and worked there for 10 years. And it was fun. And downtown was a vital place then. It was a real alive downtown.
I think it's very different today. Don't you agree?
Yes. These guys are gentrifying it, and in gentrifying it, they've killed the business. And intentionally, they moved the buses. The Mexicans used to come up South El Paso Street from the border to catch the buses at the Plaza Park, and there were a lot of second-class hotels and a lot of bars. And anyway, the downtown was a very vital place. And
very good.
And today they say it's booming, but it's a joke. It's not booming. It's because there are no businesses downtown. I mean, there's some bars and some restaurants.
Well, we hope that it builds up again, right?
Well,
we'll see how that goes.
They want conventions, and I don't know. You know, I think the big draw in El Paso is Juarez, because Juarez is fascinating for Americans to, it's third world, but
and it's close to home too, right?
Yeah,
close enough, anyways.
Yeah, but conventions aren't going to go over there. I mean, because there's problems in Juarez. But anyway, these hotels, there are 5, 6 big hotels downtown, and we'll see. They might be tax write-offs for these guys.
Well, we'll try to see how that goes, right?
We'll see how it goes.
Very good. So once you're here in El Paso, at that point, do you start being creative? Are you a creative child?
You know, I got a master's in English, and I wrote for a while. I thought of myself as a writer. I'm still a writer, but I gradually got into the visual arts because my writings didn't go anywhere. They stayed in my files.
Right.
And I went in the Peace Corps after my graduate degree in English from the University of Arizona, and I was in West Africa, in Nigeria, and really inspiring being in Africa, as it's inspiring to be in any foreign country.
Absolutely. And do you think that going to foreign countries and traveling is something that's important that everybody should do?
Well, just traveling in general, but outside the country is really inspiring, because just to try to you automatically gain a bit of a worldview. You look back on your own culture, and you see it differently, and then you see other cultures, and also you appreciate the world, and you become more interested in and fascinated with the cultures of the world. And I was in Africa for like 2.5 years. I was in Nigeria, and then I went to Ethiopia. And then over the years, I've traveled in a lot of other countries. I've been in probably 40 countries. A lot of them pass-throughs, but you know, I was in Europe for about almost 5 years, and I've done a lot of traveling. And yeah, traveling is, you know, we're one world. It's I
Absolutely.
mean, we can talk about, you know, nations and you know, but we're at a time in history where we really need all the countries in the world to unite and work against the problems that, I mean, we know about the climate situation, which is really dramatic. But it won't happen because of, you know, tribalism and greed, and you know, we got to stop the wars. And anyway, that's my point of view because I think we're all one. And,
Oh, absolutely. I
you
agree
know,
with
I
that
mean, I
statement.
say, you know, I'm a white man, but I'm also Chinese. I'm Russian. I'm black. I'm everything because
International, right?
yeah, we're all the same. We're you know, people are people, and the borders are just artificial.
Oh, I
Yeah,
absolutely agree
you
with that
know,
statement as well.
yeah.
When you were in other countries, did you feel like you were inspired by things that you saw, creative things, artistic things, or was it something that you did because you wanted to learn about different cultures?
Well, I got into photography you know, when you're in a place for a while, you don't see what's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Like staying in El Paso, for example.
yeah, staying in El Paso, we don't see the fascination of what there is here. Like when I was in the Peace Corps, other Peace Corps volunteers said, take your photographs when you first get here because you're not going to see as much after a time.
Oh, interesting.
Because we come acclimated to a place, and you know, after a while, I didn't see that I was a white man. People reminded me I was a white man, but there were black people all around me. I was black too, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, they had a term. They had a term where I was. It was in central Nigeria, and the term was, they would yell out "Oibo."
And what does that mean?
It meant man with the peeled skin, because
Interesting.
when they cut themselves, underneath, the skin was white.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we already had peeled skin.
Oh my
So
gosh,
and
that's
this
interesting.
was a colloquialism
Correct.
of that area.
Wow, that's
yeah,
really, really cool.
yeah. But Nigeria is a mess. It's 250 languages and dialects in one country.
Really?
So yeah, there are 3,000 languages and dialects in Africa. So,
I did not know that.
yeah,
Well, that in itself, I think, is creative. Wouldn't you agree?
which is
The fact that they have 3,000 different languages
yeah,
and dialects.
yeah. Well, we do too. In a sense, we have the southern dialect and the northern dialect and you know, Australian dialect and the British dialect.
That's very, very true.
And our own terms and our own colloquialisms. And anyway, man with the peel skin.
When you were young here in El Paso, did you see a lot of things that helped you become more creative as to who you are today as an individual?
Well, this is a bicultural community,
Mhm.
so I was in a sense bicultural already.
Correct. And that kind of eased you into saying, I need to go see some other countries. I need to expand my horizons.
Vietnam was going on at the time, and
that would have made me think I don't want to travel. What made you think I do want to travel?
well, it kept me out of Vietnam.
Oh, okay. Go
Yeah,
on.
yeah, and I didn't really intentionally do it, but it was kind of a logical step
Mhm.
in some ways. You know.
Was it research?
No,
Through
I
your
was
books
I
and
no, I
whatnot?
was an English teacher there. I taught in
Okay.
in a school that was elementary through high school, and in a little village in central Nigeria. And while I was there, there was a war. The East,
Wow,
yeah,
really?
the Biafra War, which was a well-known war at the time, the starving children of Biafra.
And you were in the thick of things?
Well, I was evacuated out of there. The Peace Corps volunteers were threatened, so I had the option of quitting the Peace Corps or transferring, and I wasn't 26 yet, and they were still drafting up to 26.
So you transferred somewhere else?
So I transferred to Ethiopia, which is the other side of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia is one of the poorest countries in the world, and Haile Selassie was the king then, one of the longest lasting kings in the
Africa?
in the world at the time. Yeah,
Wow,
Haile
okay.
Selassie. He was a benevolent dictator.
Oh, I can imagine.
Although he gave everything, there are something like 60 languages and dialects in Ethiopia. So he gave everything to his group of people, but he wasn't a bad guy, you know. I guess. I don't know that much.
So coming back to El Paso now, at some point you must have gone to school, graduated college. You went to school here in El Paso?
Yeah, I went to Texas. It was Texas Western when I went to school here.
Which is now UTEP.
Now UTEP. There were 3,000 students there.
Oh my gosh,
And
I think
actually,
there's over 20,000 now. Or maybe even 30,000.
No, I think it's
been
pretty stable, 22, 24,000.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it was 3,000 students then, which is most recently I was a part-time reference librarian at the Trans Mountain campus, which is 3,000 students.
Here at EPCC.
EPCC.
Very nice.
Yeah, Villa Verde is what, the 15,000 or something. That's the big campus.
That's where most of the students go.
That's where
right.
most, yeah,
That's
by design. For some reason, this has become, maybe because it's the center of the city and the other
Yeah, I
ones,
think so.
the other campuses are just token for the different parts of the city.
So while you're a librarian here in El Paso, is that when you start creating these sculptures that I've seen?
I was a librarian in Philadelphia, and years later, after my English master's, I went back to library school and got a master's in library science, and through a series of different jobs and traveling and all, I ended up a librarian in Philadelphia, and I took a night class I had already been into painting and photography, and I took a night class in the Philadelphia College of Art in sculpture, and I got captured by the process of working in clay and and the mold making process and the casting process, and it just captured me. You know, it's like I think we have passions in life, and it became a passion, and we go through different passions and different phases in our life.
That's absolutely correct. I know that I go through phases like that as well.
Yeah, we go through transitions.
Absolutely.
I mean, some people are stuck in the same thing all their life, but
it's unfortunate.
But the fun is if we can make transitions, and you know, I say people have passions when they're young, and then they have children, and the children become their passion, or their job becomes their passion. Job doesn't become their passion, they hate their job, and
that happens sometimes.
What a life, you know, if you don't like
that happens sometimes.
Slavery then.
Which is not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Not a good thing at all.
But most of the world, that's what happens.
So your work, it's very interesting, to say the least. It's very, very creative, and that's kind of one of the biggest aspects of what I want to talk to you about. We had spoken earlier a little bit about your work, and you had told me that there really is nothing that in specific about the pieces themselves, but they just seem very creative. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you come up with these ideas, where they stem from?
Well, I liked putting images on top of each other, which I got into in photography. I always had a dark room, and I would superimpose images on top of each other.
Oh,
and
nice.
I did it through. I mean, today we do it through Photoshop or
I was just going to mention that.
Through the internet and different programs. But then I would run the film through the camera twice and try to overlap the frames and underexpose the film. And it was a hit or miss process. And I got some really fascinating pictures. And also I was drawing loose little pen and ink drawings, which I kind of started doing. I did it a lot. I was in Belgium in an artist community of cartoonists, and I did about 500 little drawings over a couple years, and I think it was an extension. Something about I developed a style, and I think the style translated into my sculpture, and my sculpture is faces within faces. I'm not a refined sculptor. I don't do reality. I call my works surrealism or abstract figurative. I like the figure. It's because we relate to the figure.
Oh, absolutely, as human beings, correct.
Because it's us. Yeah, I kind of don't have much interest in abstract art. It just doesn't talk. It doesn't tell a story, and I think art should tell a story.
And your story is through your art?
Well, I think you look at my piece and you respond to it, and it's not just a design or just a splatter of paint on a canvas. A lot of the public art in this city is just abstract.
Mm-hmm.
I think the city does that. Cities do that because they don't want to be controversial.
That could be true. Yeah.
I mean, it's how do you be controversial regarding a figure that doesn't offend, doesn't say anything, but it's decorative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want art to be a little more than just decorative. So, I feel like my drawings, the concept of my drawings, kind of grew into what I did with sculpture, and I like playing with clay. It's an oil-based clay that doesn't dry, and so it's add and subtract, Unlike sculpture where you carve, you're carving stone or you're carving wood. You
Right.
can't put it back. But the clay process is, and it's pretty primitive in a way. It's playing with mud.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So
Primitive in the sense that that's what they used to do tens of thousands of years ago, but also primitive maybe in the way that it's very childlike.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was one of my theories. I wrote a master's thesis on a guy named British author named Joyce Carey, and in his books, it was about the child as an artist and the
Mhm.
artist as a child, and people say, well, what do you think about when you do your art? And I say it's not necessarily a thinking process. It's the creative process is the doing, and it's kind of therapy. People say, why do you do art? And I say it's fun. And we want to have fun in life. And a lot of activities are just passive, and doing art is active. Passive is watching a football game, watching TV, sitting on your couch and drinking beer. It's not a very creative process. Your arm is moving.
A repetition, right?
It's but I think it's in the doing. I mean, there are a lot of things that can be creative. Gardening can be creative. Cooking can be creative. It's all part of the same creative process. And what do you think about when you're gardening? You're not really thinking, you're doing. And it's an active process, not a passive process. And I think of low art and high art. Sports is low art. It's, bodies, although it's refined in that, sports figures may have perfected their
art.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
but they're doing the art. The
Mhm.
audience is just passive.
Right.
And but I think high art is more inspiring. And what is high art? A high art is drama and dance and song and music and I might be offensive to call sports low art, but it's opiate for the people. It goes back to the Roman times and the gladiators.
Correct.
It's cheering teams like the ball. Somebody said to me, "There's something about the ball you don't understand." In history, there's always been a ball.
That's very true.
Yeah, and they're teams.
Most sports,
and they're
correct.
teams. And in fact, our politics have become sports. The Democrats and the Republicans. It's teams.
Two-sided, right?
And people, a lot of people side with one side or the other in politics because they always have. They're not really thinking of what that person represents, how it's going to affect them. They're, make America great again. That's my team. Kind of simplistic. The stupid hat, the cap, slogans. you know.
Slogans, which are art as well, right?
Well, that's commercial art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commercial art. And people, you know, it's funny, in this country, advertising is real sophisticated, but it's
True.
to sway people. Back to Nigeria, the slogans were real simple, like drink Star beer, it'd make you strong.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, smoke bicycle cigarettes, it's good for you. And it's a much simpler society, much more primitive society.
The same type of advertisements, though, as far as billboards and TV ads and things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that? Newspaper?
yeah, and make America great again. It's a slogan, and we don't go beyond the slogan to see what they really mean. I mean, does bicycle cigarettes really make you feel good?
Yeah.
It gives you cancer, you know.
It's about becoming knowledgeable about things, I think. That's one
Well,
of the most important things.
yeah, I mean, you know, we have to be a little judgmental in our life.
Look beyond things, you think?
Yeah, there's a guy wrote a book years ago, a guy named Nat Hentoff wrote a book called Drawing the Line.
Mhm.
You know, we have to draw lines and make decisions in life and decide what, you know, what's good for us and what's not good for us. I mean, you know, Coca-Cola, is it good for us? You know, one Coca-Cola has 10 spoons of sugar in it. It's not good for us, you know.
That's absolutely true, and I found that out when I found out that I had diabetes. Now I cut down on the soda
Really?
a lot,
Yeah.
and I try to focus on more natural things, which is one of the things that I wasn't, I don't
Well,
know if I didn't know it or maybe I just ignored it for such a long time
Yeah.
because that's what I knew, which I love soda, but
Well,
you know,
sugar,
now
Yeah.
I cut down a little bit.
yeah, sugar,
But-
I love chocolate. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly, as do I,
But
as do
yeah,
I.
but what is good for us, you know, fruits and vegetables,
Yeah.
because they, you know, they're natural.
And they
natural.
clean our system out, right?
Yeah.
So another question that I have is, as far as creativity is concerned, why do you think that being creative or allowing yourself to be creative as an individual is important for you?
Well, I think it's a little more, it's fulfilling in a lot of ways. Like, you know, Huckleberry Finn and painting the wall,
Mhm.
you know, when you paint the wall, then you did something. You painted the wall, painted the fence white, whatever. Creating is fulfilling. You know, in the sciences, people create.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's very fulfilling. You know, it's like a sense of accomplishment and a sense of fulfillment. And, you know, having children is creative, but, you know, that becomes your passion then.
Yes, absolutely.
Having your child, you know. But, yeah, that's the ultimate in creation, I guess, is having your child.
And helping them become who they need to be as
Or
individuals, I
hopefully,
think.
yeah, if you're
Yeah.
a good parent.
But one of the things that I often focus on, especially when I'm teaching class, is the aspect of creativity and how it is involved within everything that we do. For example, one of the comments that I make to my students is how many people, or questions that I ask, how many people, what percentage of people in my class are creative? And I would say that maybe 90% say that they are not creative. And one of the examples that I give them is, if you guys dressed yourself today, you had to come up with the idea of how to put this together creatively. So maybe it's not so much that they're not creative. Maybe it's that they feel or think or have been made to think that they're not creative. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, creativity can be an appreciation of, right, people create a style for themselves. They decorate their houses.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
But, you know, looking at a flower and appreciating the flower, appreciating a tree. I love trees. You know, if I were to...
They're beautiful. And
if
I've seen one of your sculptures that is made of an actual
made of a
tree.
tree, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I'm not religious at all. I always thought if I were to have a religion, I'd worship trees. You know,
Because it's all about growth and reproduction.
Yeah, and they're like us. You know, we grow up and we die, we fall over, the tree falls over.
So what are you doing now as far as art is concerned? Are you still creating? Where can we see your work? What types of things are you doing?
Well, I've accumulated a massive amount of work, and I've not marketed my work very well. So I have a massive amount of work in my house, in my studio.
Is that somewhere where we could visit you?
Yeah, I'm open. I'm open on Saturday afternoons from noon to 5, and and I show people around, and I'm a talker, and I'm entertained, and I explain my process and what I've done, and I used to, for a long time, I went to other cities and did, weekend fairs, but my work is unusual, and not that many people buy art, and like El Paso is not a very supportive city of the arts.
It's not a huge art market, that's for sure.
No, I mean, like,
but we want to change that. I think it's important.
Good luck.
I'm trying.
Well, if I tell people, make art all your life, but keep your day job, because to make a living in art is pretty tough. I mean, how many musicians make a living with their?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, how many people in the arts make a living at their work? Very, very, very few. How many become famous?
Oh, that's very true.
Like, what is fame? Fame is ridiculous.
Right.
How many great sculptors are there in this country? Maybe a couple dozen.
Yeah.
Make a living at it. Great, painters, and also it's where you are and how well you market, and contacts. Contacts is everything too.
I think that's very true. So do you have a web page? Do you have?
Yeah, I have a web page, sure.
Also, and then you also have a book?
Yeah, and I did a book about my work to promote my sculpture. I did a book about my sculpture, and then I found I had to promote my book.
Yeah,
because
it's all about promotion, right?
Yeah, well, there were, I think I read there were 300,000 books published in this country last year, and about half of them are. It's never been easier to publish a book. You can self-publish.
Yeah, because you can publish and just put it up online, right?
Yeah, you put it on Amazon, but the self-published books average, I read something like 250 sales.
Gosh,
which is not much.
That's not much.
I printed 1,000 books of mine, because the more you print, the cheaper it is. It's a gimmick.
Absolutely.
It's promotion, and who you know, and where you are, and I always said if I was in California or New York, I would have marketed my work, because my work is really unique, and I think it belongs, in reputable galleries, reputable museums.
Well, that's what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, but if
you're getting them in museums.
If I were in any of those cities over the years, I probably wouldn't have produced what I did.
But at least you were able to do that.
Well, I was able to do it here.
Yeah, in El Paso.
Yeah, in El Paso. For some reason, for one thing, I worked in my family business for some years, 10 years, and it afforded me. Sculpture's expensive.
Oh, yes, it is.
And although there are forms of sculpture that aren't expensive, but what I did, casting is like you pay a foundry, like painters pay a frame shop. The frame shops make the money, and the painters might not.
Right.
Yeah, the sculptors, anyway. And I don't do common themes.
Well, I'm glad that you don't do common themes, because it's very exciting work, which is what we will be seeing as well. So we can see Ho at his home on Saturdays, and I wanted to thank Ho for being my guest today.
Well, thanks.
And I wanted to tell everybody, if you guys are interested in coming to the show or being interviewed, you guys are more than happy to give me a call or email me. Also, Ho, you guys can see him on Piedras, and what is the other
Piedras and Aurora.
Piedras and Aurora as well. And make sure that everybody keeps thinking creatively, because that's one of the most important things. Always think outside the box. You never know where it will take you.
It's fulfilling.
Yeah. Thank you
very much.
We
try
much.
to fulfill.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ho.
Okay.